honey buns. Today we are going to be making a bubble skirt and a bow top two-piece. If you want to achieve this look for this project, check the description box below for tools that you will need. Let's get started. Honey Bun TV.
Spend this money, gorgeous, all on you, girl.
Okay, so first thing is first, I just want to make a disclaimer that I am using these pins that I made a mistake on because I don't waste no fabric, so we are just going to transform them. But you can grab old pins and or a whole new yard of fabric to work with. Now, you will need obviously fabric and another interior fabric for the inside. So that can be any color that you want, and yeah. So as you can see me here doing right now, I am just bussing the seams with my seam ripper. And that is because obviously I'm transforming this look and I really don't want to cut too much fabric off because I'm working with limited fabric. But if you are working with just a clean slate yard of fabric, you can skip this part. If you're working with pants, what you're going to do is cut in the middle, and then I will demonstrate to you what other sides you need to cut because you need to have 4 pieces. So you'll need to have 2 pieces from the back side from your pants and 2 pieces from the front. So you just want to make sure you're cutting on these lines and these seams to achieve that. After that, you should have 4 pieces and or your whole of fabric, and we are going to start off with our first piece in cutting, which will be the skirt. So because we're going to be starting off with the skirt, I'm going to be using 1 pant leg, which will be 1 piece. And if you're with fabric, using fabric or anything like that, that is just the top yard or whatever yard you are starting with. So as you can see here, I'm just measuring down how long I want my skirt. Your skirt can be 16, 18, 20 inches, 2 inches if you want it to be. But I'm making my skirt approximately 20 inches. This is just 1 piece. And usually what I would do is cut on a fold, and that would give me basically 2-piece whole. But because I have 4 pieces, I'm cutting 1 piece by 1 piece. So this first portion will be the front half of the skirt. As you can see, this is what it's going to look like because it has 2 pieces. But if you're cutting with fabric, it should be 1 whole piece. Right. And now you are going to cut the back. So because I'm cutting the back, what that looks like is me literally layering the fabric that's already cut, the cut pieces on top of the pieces that are not cut. So that's what you're just going to want to do. After that, I'm cutting my interior fabric. Now, if you're using interior fabric, basically you are just cutting the same pieces, putting those pieces on top of each other so they match the inside, outside, outside, inside. So that is what I'm doing. The inside for this skirt is going to be black, as well as the top on the inside will be black. Now, because we have cut the skirt already, we are going to move on to the top. If you don't want a bow for your top portion and you just want a nice slick kind of plain top, the same thing will apply here. You just won't move on and make the bow. So I am just literally cutting a box to what my bust size is. So whatever your bust size is, literally you just divide that by 2 and or 4 and cut on a fold. So now that I've already cut that piece, I'm going to move on to cut the bow. But like I said, if you don't want a bow, you can skip this portion. This portion is for those who want a bow. So now I'm literally just seeing, okay, what can I work with here because I have limited fabric. So I am squeezing, pinching as much as I can. And I am noticing that there is a curve at the top of the fabric, so it won't be as full as I need it to be. So because it will not be as full as I need it to be, I'm going to get some scrap fabric and sew a piece on here to fill that portion in so it can be even. And while I'm doing that, I'm literally just going to measure out with some interfacing to make the bow a little bit stiff and not as fluffy or bouncy as it would be without it. So here I'm literally just testing it out and seeing, okay, how is this going to work out? How is this going to look? And just like I had interior fabric for my skirt, I'm going to need interior fabric for this. Now it is time to sew that fabric. So any other time I would just sew the 2 pieces together, but basically I have 4 pieces. So my 2 pieces for the front, I am going to sew those 2 together to make one whole piece, as you can see. And I'm just going to do the same for the back. Now, because I have regular fabric for my interior, I don't have to do that, but I will show you guys how to sew that in. So I'm just finishing up with my 2 pieces, and then I will show you next what to do. After seeing how that came out, you see this one whole piece of fabric. I'm literally just going to place it on top and sew my top as well as my bottom. So you're going to sew the top and you're going to sew the bottom. Here's how it should come out, and all you are going to do is flip it inside out. This is going to be the front of our skirt, where we are going to basically install some polyfill to get that bubble effect. And as you can see me here doing, I'm just doing the back piece. The only difference with the back piece is that you will sew the bottom and the side of the skirt, as you see here, because ain't no polyfill going in the back, it's going in the front. So moving on, this is our front piece. Remember, the front piece has 2 sides that are not sewn down. I am just going to measure how many lines do I want and how big do I want them. So I did approximately 2 inches. So 2 inches from 2 inches from 2 inches, which you will see me move down from the space that I am marking with some chalk to make my lines. And then after that, I will sew across to make the lines to encase the polyfill. Now we are done. You guys see those lines? Perfect and crisp, honey. Just like a snack wrap at McDonald's. Now we are just going to fill it in with some polyfill. This is leftover polyfill, but I got a big box for like 10 pounds from Walmart, or you can go to your local Joann's, and you're literally just going to fill it in. It's polyfill for a reason. Put it between those lines, and this is how it should look. And make sure that when you're putting the polyfill in, you kind of break it apart, because you don't want it to be too hard rolling in, but you want it to be hard enough for it, but you want to break it apart so it can create that effect. Now, because you have the 2 sides out, you are going to sew the front and the back piece together. Now you're going to put some elastic in here. Now the elastic, I will show the measurements at the bottom, but basically whatever your waist is, instead of dividing it by 4, divide it by 2. And whatever you divided it by, you can cut a couple inches off to your discretion. But after you install that encasing for your elastic, it will be a little scrunchy, so it can scrunch to the back and hold on to your back area, which you will see momentarily what I mean by that. So you're just going to sew the ends of the elastic, and then you are literally going to sew the bottom for the casing. So that is how it's supposed to look. That's what I mean by scrunching. Flip it inside out. Now you're done with the skirt. Boom. So now this is just if you want a regular top. So I've already started this, and I literally just sewed the side where it was open at, and then I sewed the top. So that's all I did. I just flipped it inside out, sewed the opening ends, and went down about 1/2 inch and sew that top. But the difference is, for this, we will be doing a casing to put more elastic in it. I know it's elastic everywhere, but you will see how I made 2 marks with my white chalk. That is where your encasing of elastic will go. So you're just going to sew to each mark line, starting at the line on your right. So this is what I mean by that. You see how I'm able to open it up? You're going to put the elastic in there. Going to get a paper clip and put it through a hole on your elastic, which it will create with that pointy end, and literally put the elastic through your shirt. Well, your top that you're about to create, okay? And as you can see, when you're done, you're gonna need to sew the ends so they can be kept together. And once that is done, you're literally gonna push that elastic back in and then basically sew that hole right up. Last but not least, we are getting ready to make our bow. I'm just showing you here what sides you need to sew for your bow. So you need to leave the top and the bottom open and sew the left and the right side. Now that you have sewed the left and the right side, you're going to flip it inside out. And you are going to insert the interfacing. So I'm just making sure, and what I'm doing now is measuring to make sure that the interfacing actually fits inside of the casing. So I'm just putting that in there right now and making sure that I'm getting it nice, right, and lit. Now that I got it in there, I got it to my liking. That piece was a little bit big. I had to cut it off, honey. Now that I got it in there to my liking, I'm literally going to sew down each piece. So I'm sewing down the flaps to where I want them. As you can see me here doing, I'm doing the left side first, and then I'm going to do the right side. Now that we are done, we need a piece of fabric to make that scrunchy part. So you keep seeing me scrunch it up to make sure that I'm getting the bow to my desired liking and height. And here is the piece that I will be using to make that scrunch and height. So this piece is, I made a mistake and cut it too short. So I need to go back and cut a longer piece. And cutting a longer piece is essential so you can get that scrunch, like I keep emphasizing and saying. So I'm just gonna cut another piece, but before I even do that, all you're going to do is literally almost kind of like you're folding clothes, take one side of that piece and kind of wrap it around. So here, this piece is obviously way too long, but you are just going to wrap it around, and after you finish wrapping it around, you are going to sew it down on the top and the bottom. I froze it for you so you can see where I'm going into the sewing machine, but the top and the bottom. So now that I have taken it out, I have scrunched it up to my liking. What I'm gonna do is sew this bow down on this base. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put the bow down. I'm going to go in through the bottom of the base, well, top of the base, bottom of the bow, and then I'm gonna go up through the bow and back down through that first layer in the base. And that is the method that I use and that works for me. This is one method of how you can make your bow. This is just the method that I like best, but I will definitely show you how you can do another method of making your bow without even really having to sew it down on a base. So as you can see here, I'm literally just finishing it on the inside as well and going around. And take your time, give yourself grace. And literally, I am making that knot. And voila, you now have a bow top and a skirt. Guys, next week on Honeybun TV.